Hey everybody, we're back again for another off-season recap video, and with the NHL returning January 13th, I want to try to get these finished up before Christmas, and there's only a few left to do, so today we're going to be talking about the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Vegas went all the way to the Western Conference Finals last season before coming up just a little bit short against Dallas. They were very, very close to going back to another Stanley Cup Finals, but just couldn't get there. They've come out and they've had an interesting offseason. They are very tight up against the salary cap, and there's a lot of talk about them not being done making moves either. I certainly think there's a potential for another trade here with Vegas before the season starts, but we know what they've done so far, so let's get into it. Before I start, I just ask you to please subscribe if you are new. Hit that thumbs up button. Both of those things help out so much and are greatly appreciated. But let's take a look here at what Vegas has done so far this offseason. As far as additions go, there obviously haven't been many. There's only been a couple, and that's because of their salary cap situation. But they got the big one. Alex Pietrangelo, the best player on the free agent market this offseason, is now a Vegas Golden Knight, coming over from the St. Louis Blues, where he was the captain and won a Stanley Cup in 2019. Petrangelo is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL, in my opinion. He's a great two-way player and one of the more elite defensemen in the league. And, you know, he's just a guy that comes in and obviously bolsters the back end there for Vegas. But they had to give up a lot to get him, which I'll talk about in the subtraction section. And that certainly will have an effect on this team as well. And then Carl Dalstrom is another defenseman who's kind of more of a organizational depth guy. I think he'll probably end up on the Vegas's taxi squad, which new roster thing for this year that we talked about in the last video. He's kind of a number 8, number 9 type organizational depth defenseman. But you know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, how much playing time he gets and if he does get into NHL games. But he's more of a depth guy that came over in the Paul Stastny trade. And that brings us now to subtractions. And there's obviously two big ones here: Nate Schmidt and Paul Stastny. This was the cost of getting Alex Pietrangelo and trying to fit him under the salary cap. Nate Schmidt had to be traded to the Vancouver Canucks, so obviously you add Petrangelo to that blue line. That's a really nice addition, but you give up Nate Schmidt and lose him off of that blue line, so that certainly is a bit of a loss there. Overall, it comes out as a slight upgrade, but it's not like they just added Petrangelo to their already great defense. They had to give up to get him, so it's not as big of an upgrade as it would have been had they not had to do that. And then Paul Stastny, their top 6 center, has been traded back to the Winnipeg Jets, and Dalstrom was one of the pieces that came back to Vegas along with a draft pick, but they could not afford to keep Stastny and also sign Petrangelo. So now that leaves them very thin down the middle. They're going to be relying heavily on young players like Cody Glass and Nicholas Waugh to kind of step into bigger NHL roles and play a big role with the big club, because, you know, outside of William Karlsson, they don't have a whole lot there down the middle now with Stastny gone, and they're going to need a young player to really step in and fill that role. Whether it's Waugh or Glass, someone's got to do it, because outside of that, you're looking at, you know, real fourth line type guys like Chandler Stevenson and Thomas Nosek. So, you know, forward group definitely took a hit there with Stastny leaving. They also lost Nick Cousins, a really solid kind of third, fourth line type guy who could play, you know, in the middle or on the wing, and a really good, energetic, gritty guy with some offensive upside as well. So Cousins is gone. John Merrill, depth defenseman off the back end, he is gone. He's with the Red Wings now. Cousins went to Nashville. And Derek Engelland, you know, older defenseman, really didn't play a whole lot last year. Didn't play at all in the playoffs, I don't believe. I think Zach Whitecloud was in for the entire postseason. But Engelland was kind of a veteran leader in the locker room, organizational depth D-man, and he was not brought back. So I think we've probably seen the last of Derek Engelland in the NHL, but he's not back as well. So we look at Vegas here and what they've done, and you know, they went out and they got their big target, and they brought in Petrangelo and added a legitimate Norris Trophy candidate to that blue line, but they also had to give up to do it, and that's why it's not like they kept the same team and just added Petrangelo to it, because if they did that, I think you'd be talking Stanley Cup favorite here. But they had to lose Schmidt, they had to lose Stastny, and that certainly is a bit of a hit for this team. So it seems like they added it in one area, but then kind of lost in another with this Petrangelo signing. Dalstrom's a depth guy, and you know, they had to lose some forwards as well. You know, losing Stastny out of that middle is a tough loss there. And then Cousins is a really solid depth guy that isn't going to be super easy to replace. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these young players step up. Again, I'm expecting a lot more from Cody Glass this season. He's got to really step into a top 6 NHL role. I think he's going to get a crack at that second line center spot, and hopefully he can take it. Nicholas Waugh, who we saw quite a bit of in the playoffs last year, kind of in a third line role, I think is probably going to be a third liner. And that's a guy that, you know, you want to see, you know, continue to develop and continue to take those next steps at the NHL level. And then we haven't even talked about goaltending yet, but they re-signed Robin Leonard. They still have Marc-Andre Fleury. So they have one of the absolute best, if not the best, 1-2 punches in goal for any NHL team this season, with Fleury and Leonard in net. You know, I talked in an earlier video, I think sometime last week, about how important goaltending tandems are going to be with all the back-to-back games in the condensed schedule this year. You have to have 2 high-level goalies. Vegas certainly has that. So Vegas is a team that I really think is going to focus on defense first. They're going to get great goaltending. They have 2 high-level goaltenders. They're going to focus on defense first. They're going to try to not give up a lot of goals. And then, you know, they're going to hope that guys like Pacioretty and Stone and, you know, Riley Smith, Marchessault, if he's still there, Tuck, that these guys can score. And that, you know, they're going to be able to get enough offense out of those guys for them to be able to make a deep run. I certainly expect Vegas to be a playoff team this year. You know, I think they would once again be able to make a bit of a run in the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be a conference finals team again, but, you know, they certainly have the chance to. And in a shortened season, I think pretty much anything can happen. Now, like I said, there are still a lot of talks about Vegas making another move. And that's because they are currently over the salary cap, and they're going to need to find a way to lose even more salary here as we head into this season. So there's been a lot, you know, the Pacioretty rumors came out. Now they've kind of put a damp on those, and we're like, no, he's not going anywhere. So now it's Marchessault is going to be the guy moved out. But there's a lot of talk about them trading a forward, a winger, to open up some cap space and make sure that they're cap compliant. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Their offseason may not be done, but that's what they've done so far. In Vegas, I mean, obviously, there's been some really good things this offseason. Getting Petrangelo is massive. Re-signing Leonard was massive. But then there's also been some hits to the lineup. They had to give up Stastny for not a lot in return. They had to give up Schmidt for not a lot in return just because of the salary cap situation. So it's been kind of a good and bad thing. There's been good and bad this offseason. I think overall it's been a good offseason, but I'm not sure if Vegas is as deep up front as they want to be, and that might be something that they look to address going forward, or just hope that some of these younger players can step up and fill those roles. But yeah, I certainly expect them to be a contending team again this year, especially with that defense in duo and net. They should be one of the better defensive teams in the league. So that's what I've got on the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store and donation link are down in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.